Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Ralph, and welcome back to London Zoo 1904, my recreation of London Zoo as it stood in the year 1904. And for the first time in one of these tours, we have crossed through the tunnel. We are in the middle garden because we are checking out the Elephant and Rhino House. So this was built in 1868 and, as the name might suggest, was the zoo's home of elephants and rhinoceros. So the interior, fairly simple, just as many of these buildings were, just kind of a row of stalls to keep the animals in. So, as I say, we've got rhinos, we've got elephants, we've got Indian rhinos. This one is just labelled as an African rhino. Today we would call it a black rhino. So this one is slightly time travelling. So technically, the zoo's previous black rhino died in 1891, and they won't have another one until 1906. But the first white rhino in the UK lived in London Zoo in 1955. So that'd be even more out of place. So to give a little bit of variety, we've got a slightly time-travelling black rhino here. So this is either Theodore or Theodora, depending on whether they've travelled forward or back in time. Also got some work being done on one of the Indian elephant stalls. We've got a Javan rhinoceros here, being played by a small female Indian rhinoceros. The zoo would also have fairly frequently had Sumatran rhinoceroses, but didn't have one in 1904. So yeah, some species that would be quite unusual to see in zoos these days. And then finally we've got an Indian elephant at the end here. So these bars, definitely big enough for an elephant to get its trunk through, so they would have been fed quite a lot of buns and things in this house. And then upstairs from that public corridor, we've got the service area. So that's this corridor that runs along here. So we've got these winches here that would be used to open up the gates between the stalls. Seems a bit of a precarious working position, but this is how it was. And that was all accessed by rope ladders. I don't know if there was also a slightly more sensible way of getting up here, but it doesn't seem like there was any room in the building for a flight of stairs or anything like that. So I think it might have just been the rope ladders and also a winch, which would have attached here somewhere. So we've got this sort of storage area. I've used it for food, for hay, for things like that, some hay lofts as well. So yeah, a little platform out here for a winch. Pretty nice view across the canal there. And then also up here was keeper accommodation. So there were 4 rooms, which I assume were 2 at each end, because there are some sensible places for them to be positioned. There aren't any references that I can find of this exactly, so I'm sort of extrapolating. Yeah, little keeper apartment. So we've got a bed, we've got a basket, I don't know, laundry basket, little dressing table. This isn't really supposed to hold up to more than just a little glance through the window, but yeah, there would have been keepers living in here as well. So continuing on outside, we come to the outdoor paddocks, which, in the grand scheme of things, not too bad for the time, fairly roomy. So the outdoor paddocks, surrounded by this fence with this quite distinctive rounded top to all of the railings. Presumably that is to stop the elephants from injuring their trunks when they reach over the fence. So in-game I've used little light bulbs and little wooden things from the Indonesia set. Yeah, fairly roomy outdoor area. These large pools as well, which I'm sure the animals appreciated. So a couple of details in this outdoor area that I quite like. First things first, we've got these little keeper safety areas around the gates. These little rounded bits of railing, too small for the animals to get into, because of course standard practice would have been that you just went into the outdoor area with an elephant or a rhino, unless it was a particularly bad-tempered rhino. So having this little space in front of the keeper gate to make sure that there's always an area to retreat to that the animals can't get to you. There's also areas for the animals to wallow, which was quite unusual for the time, and might go some way to explaining why the rhinos were quite so long-lived. So this Indian rhino in this paddock here is Jim, and in 1904 Jim is the oldest animal in the zoo, or the oldest mammal in the zoo at least. I suppose there might be some very old giant tortoises, but he was 42 years old, and he actually died in December of 1904. But we don't need to think about that now, Jim. You've got that ahead of you, unfortunately. It's a glorious August day here in 1904. So this pool is a slightly different design and at a slightly weird angle to the house, because this pool was actually part of the old elephant house, the original elephant house, which was built in the 1830s, which was at a slightly different angle to this one. So they kept the pool when they built the new house. Quite sensible, I suppose. And then these braces, these buttresses around this door are a relic of when Jumbo used to live in the house. So this was his stall, and he had a problem with his tusks, which he found very, very irritating. And he would grind his tusks against the inside wall when he was in his stall at night, which meant that this wall started to bow outwards. So they put in these buttresses to reinforce it a little bit, which is quite scary. Jumbo was a very big and powerful animal. Some other little details. We've got this little tool here, which was for unplugging the pools to drain them and clean them. And then all of the drain pipes are recessed, so they're all flush with the wall to stop the animals from tampering with them. So there we go. This is the elephant and rhino house. So it stayed around until 1939 when it was demolished. There were plans to build another elephant house afterwards in roughly the same site, but it never really came to fruition. So now this site is covered by the Claw Pavilion, which is now Rainforest Life, built as a small mammal house with nightlife in the basement. So very different cast of characters. As always, let me know in the comments if you've got any questions, if you've got anything you'd like to know a little bit more about, any bits you particularly liked. Let me know. I'll always respond to everything. And keep an eye out tomorrow, because London Zoo 1904 will be hitting the Steam Workshop. Very exciting. So you can explore it yourself. Subscribe to the channel so that you know when the next video comes out, because I don't have the most consistent schedule. But yeah, thank you very much for checking out this tour, and I'll see you all in the next one. Thanks so much. Bye.